Hi, this is Kendra from Pencil and Pigment, and it's July, it's World Watercolor Month, and I thought I would do some watercolor videos. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about different ways to blend. Now I am using my Winsor Newton Cotman set. I feel like this is a pretty common set that maybe a few folks own. The colors I'm going to be using are alizarin crimson hue and viridian hue. And the brush I'm using is just a Princeton Velvet Touch 4 round. I will link all the products in the description box below. Let's get started. So the first way to blend watercolor, and here's my water, and I also have a towel, and this is going to come in handy. So I'm going to lift my sheet a little bit for this one. And what you want to do is you want to create sort of a bead of water. You want to make sure you have plenty of water and plenty of pigment on your brush, and as it moves down, you're going to see the bead of water where it's hanging down low. That's what I'm going to blend into. Now I am cleaning my brush. I'm going to go back in with the viridian, and I'm going to blend into that bead of water. And this is one way to blend two colors together. You can keep going with other colors. You just snag onto that bead and keep going. Now, if you are done with that bead and you don't want water sitting there, or you're worried your pigment might flow a weird direction, clean your brush, remove all the water from it. Keep cleaning your brush, removing the water from it, and just touch that with an empty brush, and the empty brush will soak up the sitting liquid. That is one way you can blend watercolor pigments. I apologize for the cars outside. I can't really control that. Another way you can blend pigments is you can have your viridian on the top. You can have your alizarin crimson on the bottom. And I'm cleaning my brush. And I'm going to remove all the water from it to make sure there's no pigment in there. Now, I want a little bit of water, and I'm going to blend in between them with water. And you need to figure out how much water you prefer when you are blending two colors together. You go in between. And that is one way you can blend one color into another color. Another way you can do that is sort of the wet on wet technique. So I'm adding water to my page, so my page is wet. I'm going to add the viridian green, and it is going to bloom out like kind of a flower. And from there I can add the alizarin crimson on top of, right next to, and the edges will bloom together because the page is already very wet. And this is one way you can blend watercolors together. Now, another way you can do that is with your brush. Now I have flattened my brush, so it's not round, it looks a little bit more flat. One side I'm going to dip in the green, one in the red, and a little water, and you can do it this way as well and create different blending techniques with the sides of your brush. So if I'm going to paint something, the color's already a little mixed, and these would be leaves. Another way you can blend colors is if you have green painted. Here is my green. And what I want to do is I want to soften up this edge, and I'm going to blend the green out. And in blending the green out, I can then add a little bit of the alizarin crimson, and you keep going back through and softening up the edges and figure out, do you want the green to move into the red? Do you want the red to move into the green? So it looks like a more even mixture of blending, and that's through softening the edge. You can just do that with one solid color. Keep removing the pigment and just blend the edge out more and more. and you're just basically desaturating the pigment until it's blended out. So you can do that with one single color as well. All right. Now, this one I'm going to let dry. And I'm going to show you another one that you can do. This one is a little bit more specialty. Here is a plate I am using as a palette just so you can see it. I have the Schmincke Hudrum Aquarelle. This is the French Ultramarine. And I have Daniel Smith's Lunar Earth. Now the particle pigments in these are very, very different. These are very granulating colors. When you mix them together, they try and pull apart. This is absolutely one of my favorite mixtures. Putting these two colors together. You can put two colors together that are granulating and watch them spread apart. And in doing so, you've mixed two colors together. Now I get that that's probably, and when it dries you'll get a unique look every single time. So this is much more specialty. It's, you know, I'm not using anything in my Cotman set. The pigments in my Cotman set aren't granulating. But these two colors will sort of pull apart and they're sort of blended. So it will look a little brown, it will look a little blue, it will also look a little gray. All right. So this one right here is dry. And I'm going to take my red, my alizarin crimson. I'm going to add some water to that so that's thinned out. And I'm going to do a layer on top. So you can blend on top of another color that's already dry. And blend that out with water. And that is another way you can blend. It's like creating a glazing effect, a shadow effect, like how they do in oil paints with watercolors. There's many different ways to have watercolors sort of come together, and you can just try wet things, you can try dry things, you can do a stipple effect where when you stand back from a distance it looks like they're blended and maybe they're not. There's so many different ways to do watercolor. You kind of have to figure out how much water you want on the brush and how much you don't want. Another thing to be wary of when you are painting with watercolor and you're blending is if you're doing one color and you're working on something very specific and you're doing this sort of beaded technique where it all sort of water comes down and you're grabbing the water and you keep going, what you don't want to do is go back to the top and start messing with it again, because you're changing the amount of saturation in the pigment. It doesn't look as good. So once you lay the pigment down on the page, you want to keep going with that pigment. You don't want to keep touching the top layers. You leave those layers alone. So these are my different blending techniques. I hope you enjoyed this video. Watercolor is absolutely so much fun. And yeah, we're gonna add a little bit. We're gonna come in and see if we can blend this heart out a little bit. That's a lot of water. I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna remove some of the water. All right, I hope you have a wonderful day and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.